can't restore the old Soviet Union. You just can't. It's totally bongos. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Forum Magnum. Today we're going to be discussing the Russia-Ukraine War. Specifically, we're going to be discussing how it should end and what the peace deal should look like. I'm really curious to hear what you think about this topic, so please leave a comment below and subscribe. First, let's give some background. So, the Russia-Ukraine War first began in February 2014 as a byproduct of Ukraine's Revolution of Dignity, where the pro-Russian president of Ukraine, Yanukovych, was ousted by the Ukrainian parliament and fled the country to Russia. In that initial period, Russia annexed Crimea, the southern peninsula of Ukraine, and supported separatists both directly and indirectly in the Donbas region. A ceasefire agreement was put in place in 2015, and the war was on ice until February 2022, where, as I'm sure you know, Russia famously launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine that made it to the doors of the capital, Kyiv. It's now been over 3 years since Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and the war is at a functional stalemate with over 1 million casualties reported. With the recent election of US President Donald Trump, there's been increasing talks about a peace deal and a ceasefire, and right now, in these very weeks, there's a lot of movement in that direction. So I thought it'd be good to cover what a prospective peace deal might look like and what I think the best peace deal would be. So yeah, we're going to cover that today. And as a first step, or I guess a second step really, after the background, we can go over the list of Russia's demands and Ukraine's demands. Let's look at Russia's demands first. So Russia seeks recognition of all the currently occupied lands as Russian. And they also seek, on top of that, for Russia to be given all of the regions that it claims to have control over, or that have a majority Russian population, but that it does not control. And this would be places like the city of Kyiv. They also want a guarantee that Ukraine will never join NATO, which based off Putin's aggression is, in my opinion, a bit ridiculous. Finally, they want the lifting of sanctions against Russia that the Western powers have imposed. So those are the 4 major demands on the Russian side. On the Ukrainian side, they seek a full withdrawal of Russian troops from all Ukrainian territory, even territory that is currently occupied. Basically, they want all of the Ukrainian territory back, and many people are even including Crimea, which was taken in 2014 in that bunch. They also want a return of prisoners and kidnapped Ukrainian children, which is perfectly reasonable to me, why were hostages taken in the first place. And then they want 2 more things. They want prosecution of Russian war leaders for war crimes, and there's a lot of evidence that many war crimes occurred on the Russian side, on both sides in fact, but the severity and the scale of war crimes is much bigger on the Russian side of the ledger. Finally, Ukraine wants to have security guarantees in the future, guaranteed by Western powers, to prevent further Russian aggression. However, they have said that they are willing to forestall membership in NATO, at least for now, as long as they get those security guarantees. And personally, I think that they need the security guarantees. That's paramount because Putin has shown time and time again, he will break deals, he'll try and take over countries. He's really just a ruthless dictator, and I think that that is basically a fact. If not, there's a lot of inconvenient facts for the other side that they have to get around to disprove that. All right, so that's basically the whole story, the background, the demands. And now we can get to my take. I've already kind of started to spill over there into the opinion part, but this is my full opinion, my peace deal for how the Ukraine war should end. I'm curious what you think about it, and I want to hear your thoughts as well. So please leave a comment on how you think the war should end, what your peace deal is. Let's see if we can solve this together. We've got to end the Ukraine war now, and we've got to stop Putin's aggression before it gets totally out of control. This means a peace deal, where both sides are going to have to make major concessions. Of course, we should try and prefer Ukraine in this process, and at the same time punish Russia for their aggression. If I were the one that was calling the shots here, doing the diplomacy and making the deals for my one-bedroom apartment, of course, that I rent, then I would probably have a deal as follows: that we have NATO security guarantees for Ukraine, that the US and the EU invest in rebuilding that country, and then on the Russian side, that Russia can keep control of all the lands that it has acquired up to this point, and for the disputed regions that they claim to own, we can have a referendum in those areas where we let the citizens decide if they want to be with Russia or if they want to be with Ukraine. But I'm pretty sure they're going to choose Ukraine. Why would you choose Russia? And as a final thing, I think we'd probably have to lift the sanctions on Russia, but that's a fairly small giveaway. Overall, I feel like this deal could be really beneficial to Ukraine and ensure that Putin never attacks the country again while getting it on the path, Ukraine that is, to recovery. But please let me know what you think in the comments. I'm curious to hear if you have a peace deal of your own, or if you have any suggestions on how we might end this war. I'd love to hear it. And please subscribe, please like, and have a good one. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.